Good afternoon, good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty360. I hope everyone's happy, safe, and well on this Tuesday afternoon. I want to welcome you back to another edition of Loyalty Live. In this series, we talk to the leaders in customer channel brand loyalty about the technology, trends, best practices that impact a brand's ability to drive unique experiences, engagement, and most importantly, customer loyalty. Right now, we're actually looking at some challenges that brands are having. We have weekly meetings with the members of Loyalty360 on the brand side, and it's usually around a topic. And this one actually is pertaining to corporate social responsibility. Marketers who run customer loyalty programs, customer engagement, customer experience programs are looking for ways to get corporate social responsibility into the program, but do it in a way that's truly genuine to the brand and not something as they're kind of having to do. So it's definitely an area of challenge. And these questions actually all will address that. And we have an amazing speaker, Pam Erlichman from Jebbit. She's the Chief Marketing Officer, a very, very bright lady, and always great talking to her. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So when you look at corporate social responsibility, social good, brands are obviously very interested in doing that. As a thought leader, what are you seeing at a high level pertaining to corporate social responsibility and customer loyalty, kind of the engagement between the two?
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, we always start with what consumers value, right? And that's what drives really high engagement and relevancy for the brand. So when I was thinking about this topic and digging in, it's pretty easy to find stats like 71% of consumers prefer to buy from brands aligned with their values. And when you double click into that, when you're just looking at millennials, it's 83%, it jumps up. So to me, social responsibility has absolutely moved from a nice to have to, or a nice to do, I should say, to a must do in order to build that connection.
Okay, great. Can
It's
you
how
give a couple high level examples or where corporate social responsibility is working maybe for brands and maybe a couple that you may or maybe at least instances where you think it could be enhanced?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is right. A lot of social responsibility is originated and set at the corporate level, and not necessarily rooted, based from the more the hands of the customer side. And so I think that can lead to disconnects where the social responsibility isn't really permeating through the rest of the marketing organization. And so I think, for one, the brands that do it best, it's authentic and core to who they are. I think a lot of D2C brands have come out, absolutely building their company with that in mind. And so therefore it's connected to all parts of the company. So when I think of brands doing it well, I think about like Tom's or Warby Parker or even Lisa Mattress, where it's part of their DNA. So I think for larger brands, it's now about the connection point of how do you take what that brand is standing for and really trying to promote, and what are the right messages and how do you connect that, and to the consumers in a way that resonates with them.
And it's interesting, you talk about a lot of the CSR efforts are a little bigger, right? They kind of originate up the C-suite, but we see a lot of loyalty programs right now trying to integrate a CSR effort, right? Charitable giving, trying to have alignment, whether it's donating used shoes or like something that PetSmart does with regard to they have 7 million pets they've helped be adopted over a period of time. So that's very genuine. But we see a lot of brands who kind of struggle with that, where they're trying to get that, they have a need potentially to have part of their program. So they may do it because it's something they need to do. They see everyone else doing it, and it may not be completely aligned. How should one best do that? I mean, is that something you should do, or can you give us? You mentioned Warby Parker and Tom's and others. When brands are struggling with regard to making sure that it's alignment, making sure it's genuine, how should they approach that?
Yeah, I think in my past life, I've worked on a lot of big loyalty programs that did things like outsource. Right, they wanted to have a charitable donation as part of their loyalty program and give people an opportunity to burn through a channel like that, but it was through an outsourced charity vendor or something like that. So I think again, it's not authentic, it's not woven into the brand story and really a part of them, and the reason why isn't obvious to the consumer. So I think for brands working on this, it's more important that it is sort of homegrown, so to speak, and natural to who the brand is and what they stand for and what they're trying to do. So I think authenticity is the most important aspect when really thinking about what the brand stands for.
Yeah, when you look at authenticity, that's kind of that unique buzzword that everyone's had for the last couple of years. And obviously, when you look at the core, the word, it is very important. But truly doing that from a marketer perspective can be challenging. And even
Mhm.
from a partnership perspective, that's something it's growing of interest in our community as well. But doing it so that both of them have some reciprocal value is a challenge. But when you look at authenticity, how should a brand kind of approach that? Do you have any going back to your days of kind of doing more consulting and running these programs, any ideas of how or one should approach that?
Yeah, I think first it is starting at the selection process, right? What does the brand stand for? What good can it do in the world? What is the natural connection to the products or services they sell? So I think it starts at the root. And then I think from there, it's, do your customers care, right? So we talked before about how a lot of corporate responsibility choices are top down, but we're, making sure the bottoms up connection to the customers and it's something they value and view as important is critical as well to this. And then I think the other piece to it is it can't be just the flavor of the month, or in March we're going to talk about this, or we're occasionally going to hit this message. It has to be woven in to everything they're doing in reinforcing those messages and that mission.
Absolutely. Okay. When you look at a process, right? And we had this discussion. It's been about a month now, where corporate social responsibility, charitable good, social good was kind of the theme. And one of the things that came out was the challenges with regard to these CSR efforts. Are they measurable? Does it add value to their marketing efforts, their branding efforts, or sales efforts, or is it something they just have to do? And a lot of marketers think that's something they just have to do, right? That it's really hard to substantiate a kind of a proven ROI or some incremental value, but that's kind of a challenge. Should you actually be doing that if you're looking at CSR? So, how should marketers kind of look at that? Because I think that impacts how you get executive buy-in, at least initially and going forward, correct?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely measurable and should be, right? I think as a marketer, you shouldn't be doing anything unless you can prove the value of it, both quantitative and qualitatively. And I think there's no better function in the marketing organization than the loyalty team to be the arbiters of truth in first ensuring that the brand CSR efforts are in fact aligned with the values of their customers. And so, really understanding what aspect of social responsibility do they care most about, or are they off the mark in alignment and messaging? So I think first setting the loyalty teams, since they are the best at getting the customer data and understanding it, are the first. Our first should be setting the messaging and the relevancy and strategy from there. Second, they can prove if the brand CSR efforts will move their consumers to action. Again, no better team to set up test and learn structures than messaging with or without that, offers with or without, reward redemption and things like that with or without. So I think if there is a team to prove it, the loyalty team is absolutely the one to do it. And then finally, over time, they are the ones that can prove if it truly is a driver of lifetime loyalty, and for which segments does it matter most or not, right? There's likely going to be certain segments that they're focused on that it matters a great deal, others not so much. Right. So again, the loyalty team's the one that can capture directly the consumer data and tie it to the results.
Okay. And what if it doesn't have kind of a return? Is there an effective way to transition out, or because that seems to be a big concern too, because a lot of the marketers we met with didn't see kind of the ROI and were challenged with that, right? And they were getting kind of hit up by the CFO. Again, is this something we should do, or should there be a return? And how do you do that if it's not working? Transition out. Again, I think you mentioned that the authenticity is very hard to kind of substantiate and define, and alignment is very hard to define as well. So, any ideas or any brands? You mentioned some of the brands doing it well. How do you kind of navigate that if it doesn't work?
Yeah, if it's not working, I guess I'd first ask, well, is it the cause itself, right? Is it something that's just not resonating and not top of mind and something the customers care about? So again, as I mentioned, that qualitative data about what customers really care about, and if the brand and those customers are aligned from a values perspective. And then there's a lot of reasons why something could work or couldn't work, right? If they feel like the alignment's there and the values there, then and double click into, well, how are they executing against it? And is it, like we just talked about, right? Is it being woven into everything we do? Is it being just treated as a flavor of the month and this bolt on or quick mention at the bottom? So I think before you walk away from it, if you've got the answer that yes, the values are aligned, then I think you probably have to reevaluate how you're executing against it before you abandon ship. Obviously, if there's misalignment between the consumers and what the company's choosing to do from a corporate responsibility standpoint, then that's something to rethink and reevaluate.
And you kind of talked about it quickly, the loyalty team being the ones that can best kind of define what should be working and what needs to be working. And do you think it's that group as well, since it's their responsibility on the loyalty side, to isolate the drivers that may be benefiting or driving the customer engagement?
I do. I think, at Jebbit, we talk about it's easy to just ask, right? When you own the customer, you can just ask. So, doing things in the normal course, and what we've seen our customers do is using things like product finders and personality quizzes and trivia. It uncovers the motivation. So why do you shop with us? What is most important to you? Is it quality? Is it selection? Is it rewards? Is it our values? Again, they can really uncover what is it that the consumers value, and make sure they're meeting their needs there.
Well, that was interesting too. That was one of the topics that during the meeting as well, is using surveys, right? Getting that Zeroparty data. Some of the brands have done that. Maybe they're not doing it effectively because a lot of times humans are irrational. What they say they want, what they say they have an interest in, and what they actually end up doing can be dichotomous, right? So you kind of talked about it a little bit. How can you use your platform with surveys, kind of the different data sets that you can aggregate through games and potentially understanding what the customers truly may have an interest in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we're seeing our clients do really well. Again, in the course, because by nature, and I'll back up and explain for those who don't know a little bit more about what our platform does. It allows brands to go in and create those interactive consumer experiences. So as I mentioned, product finders, trivia, interactive lookbooks, personality quizzes, all of these are creating a two-way dialogue, not just push messaging out. So you have the ability to ask any question you want in the course of these experiences. And so what can come up, again, to your point about they might say it, but will they do it? There's a big difference between just taking some standard typical survey, right, and saying, I care about these and checking the boxes, versus, they're really engaging in a product match, and you're weaving those kind of questions into, like, what's most important? Is it the quality of our products? Is it the speed and convenience? Is it what we stand for? And if that's aligned with you, I think just as important as the cause is authentic, I think the way you need to go about and create the dialogue with your consumers has to be authentic as well.
Do you have brands that are using that in that regard for a corporate social responsibility, or for kind of alignment, or kind of similar kind of Zeroparty efforts?
Yeah, we do. I'll talk about one of our we're a partner of the Ad Council. And we donate a platform to them, and we've worked on several initiatives. And one great example, I would say, is every year in the summertime, they partner with Anheuser-Busch on the anti-drinking and driving campaign. And so this is something where obviously not anti-drinking and driving is core to Anheuser-Busch's, like, again, talk about authentic, responsibility from the top, completely works for, completely ingrained in their brands. And they're feeling their duty is to make sure to continue to educate, continue to bring up the points and what to be watching out for, and sharing the stats to prevent these things from happening. And so through our partnership, we've created these education and trivia based experiences to remind, reinforce, teach, all of those factors that they want to make sure are top of mind for people. That's one example. I would say another is, and when we talk about emotional loyalty, NARS is a great example of, this isn't necessarily like their social, cause, but when COVID hit, they were just recognizing that, okay, our customers are in a different mindset right now. They might not want to hear from us as much as before. They might want to talk, learn different things. And so using this as a way to say, hey, how you doing? What is most interesting to you right now? How often do you want to hear from us? Where do you want to hear from us? And just, again, it's another example of just kind of recognizing and meeting people where they are on more of an emotional level, than just having, the product conversation.
Okay. What about messaging with regard to the program and kind of making sure that it's cohesive and it's in a natural extension of the program? Is it using the data points you have? What works in that regard to kind of promote it in a synergistic way, but obviously authentic, and also where there's kind of promotes both the brands? Is it using Zeroparty data there, or is it just understanding the communication paradigms of the customers? What works from a communication cadence perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're, and this is right, communication over time and Zeroparty data usage over time. So if you've already done something where you understand that your cause is super important to this segment of customers, then absolutely ensuring that message keeps coming back and stringing through is critically important. I think the examples of just quick did you knows, how much purchases have contributed to helping the cause that year, or again, more natural ways. Did you know that every purchase you make goes and supports this? Did you know here's what we were able to do and help this year based on it? I think that's a great and natural way in the process to tell that story. And then I also think, there's examples where another example that I've seen out there is the NHL has a program called Future Goals. And so they've done, again, I think for all the experiences that our customers do with us, I really do think trivia in the point of education and reinforcement is probably the best way to go about these conversations. But the NHL has a program called Future Goals, and they've masterfully tied STEM related, promoting STEM and facts about hockey. And so again, completely core to their fans and what their fans want to learn, and being able to pull in and tie that social responsibility aspect in a very organic way for their brands.
Okay. And when you look at the selection, I think you mentioned it earlier, it was a big thing this year going through COVID. A lot of, or should I say, a number of people who have customer loyalty programs are looking to change the program, allow for redemption of currency potentially toward the balance, or to give to charity. The systems didn't really allow for that. But even when they did, with the high overhead where 5-10% is going to administration, that caused some kind of rancor as well. how do you go about, finding a great program, or is that something that, because that seems to be a challenge, right? If you go to kind of the aggregators where they're getting huge discounts, it doesn't seem to be kind of the right way to do that.
I personally, I don't think so. Again, I think it if done right, it can and should be a cohesive extension of the whole brand. But I'm fully acknowledging that takes work. That's not easy. And so it can't just be, bolted in as a burn option, or something, or like I mentioned before, just featured once a year during some big campaign or time period when it happens. It really has to be woven through and sort of at the heart of the mission and the message.
Okay.
Again, it also, there's the frequency rule in advertising that takes a consumer to hear messages 6 to 20 times before it registers. And so, again, just making the point about it, it can't just be a once in a while or just one line item in a program. It really kind of has to be core to what the program's trying to do.
What about CSR efforts in regard to empowered organizations, employees, potentially attracting new employees, maybe passionate about the cause or charity being partnered with, or potentially it could be, if it's not the right charity, because a lot of people may have certain charities that may be detracting. Is that something that they should consider, and how do brands kind of navigate that?
For employees?
Yeah, for employees, right? So it could be, is it a good thing to have certain charities, or will some charities maybe a turnoff to others? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so I love this question because monster.com, the job site, is a big client of ours, and we've spoken about this a number of times. One of the things that we've talked about is the approach to job descriptions needs to be blown up and reimagined. The typical job description of here's our company and here's your role and everything. We know what's most important to job seekers today are things like even above salaries and benefits is culture and corporate citizenship, and work from home flexibility, and pre-COVID bringing your pets to work, things like that. So it really does, a standard job description doesn't cut it anymore. You have to really rewrite it and rethink about it based on what your employees most care about. And I think, if you're I'm not going to give a specific example, but you've got to make sure the corporate alignment aligns with what your employees care about. And so you can imagine that if you're trying to hire a bunch of like tech and engineers and again, I feel very political going here, so I'm not going to say another charity, but if there's a clear misalignment about who the brand's supporting and what they stand for, versus what your employees care about, obviously that's going to become an issue.
Okay, great. And I think the last question we have for you is, what trends do you see with your clients and their approaches to CSR, and what advice do you give to them when they are evaluating causes the brand may support, they may tie to the loyalty program? How are you advising your clients?
Yeah, I think as I said it before, if the best way to do this is that it is a genuine extension of the brand. And it resonates with your customers. And so that connection has to be made first and foremost. And then it has to be not viewed as a campaign. It has to be viewed as part of the messaging pillars that in the reinforcing of messaging and the value that's going out to your customers across touch points. So that I fully recognize that part of the work is the hardest, right? Getting that alignment and messaging and that resonates. And that's where Zeroparty data can absolutely help set them up for success. And then from there, if you've made that connection, you've got those pieces in place, it should be pretty easy to weave into everything you do from that point on.
Right. Okay. Well, Pam, I think these were great insights you had, especially how you can leverage the different data sets, which I think marketers struggle with as well. And to your point, kind of setting them up and constructing them in a manner that truly gets to the core issue that of CSR and alignment, I think is key. And working with someone like you that has great success in that, and Jebbit would be a great way to do that.
Yeah, and thanks for the time. I think a lot of brands are wrestling with emotional loyalty, and the emotional piece isn't anything that you can easily achieve by looking at transactional or behavioral data, right? It only
Yeah.
comes from having that conversation and getting those much more aspirational and lifestyle and motivational data sets from your customers. And so yeah, we appreciate the time, and absolutely feel like that's part of the connection to build those relationships.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, and look forward to hearing